There's a tattoo parlor in Salford, Manchester. Modest, quiet, the kind of place you'd walk past without thinking twice. And inside, a man named Bayam Farzain Bagbanan is inking skin, making a living, looking every bit like someone who's grateful for a second chance, because that's exactly what he is. 4 years earlier, he arrived in the UK cramped in the back of a lorry, fleeing Iran in darkness, terrified, paying smugglers everything he had just to breathe free air again. And when he finally emerged, claiming asylum, going through the humiliating, necessary process of becoming a refugee, he told himself he'd never forget what that felt like. The fear, the desperation, the vulnerability of arriving in a foreign land with nothing but hope. And for a while, he didn't forget. He built something legitimate, learned English, opened his shop, lived quietly. But then something shifted. Gratitude became resentment. Relief became entitlement. Bayam discovered gambling, casinos, bookmakers, the rush of risk. And within months, he wasn't just a tattoo artist anymore. He was an addict, losing hundreds daily, drowning in debts his modest income couldn't touch. And that's when he had an idea, a terrible, brilliant idea. What if he became the smuggler? What if he used his own journey, his own pain to profit from others still fleeing Iran, still desperate, still willing to pay anything to reach the UK? And so he built something audacious, a sophisticated operation moving over 260 people in 22 months, £11,000 per person, booking flights from European cities to British airports, providing fake passports his customers would destroy mid-flight, flushing them away over the Atlantic, arriving undocumented, claiming asylum just as he once did. And the system worked perfectly, efficiently. £170,000 in 5 bank accounts, another £50,000 in cash at home, gambling debts paid, lifestyle upgraded, 3 accomplices recruited to launder money, layer accounts, cover tracks. And Bayam felt untouchable, invincible, like he'd cracked some code the authorities would never break. Except he made one mistake, one small oversight born from convenience. He used the same email addresses repeatedly, booking flight after flight, because it was easier, because it worked, because he stopped being careful. And that single thread, that digital trail Bayam left because efficiency mattered more than security, would unravel everything. In Paris, a French border guard noticed a pattern, the same emails appearing across dozens of bookings, always Iranian nationals, always arriving in the UK without papers, because machines notice what humans miss. Algorithms flag what intuition overlooks. By April 2016, a joint investigation team was building a case. UK immigration enforcement, French border police, Europol. 8 months of forensic analysis, tracking bank accounts with unexplained deposits, phone records showing daily coordination, flight manifests revealing the unmistakable pattern of people boarding with documents in Europe and arriving without them in Britain. On December 5, 2016, as Bayam slept peacefully in his Salford flat, confident his perfect crime would continue, 8 officers pounded on his door at 6 a.m., arrested him, seized his computers, his phones, his carefully hidden cash. And suddenly, the man who'd helped 260 people flee for a better life became the one running, violating bail, disappearing to Turkey, then Greece, moving through the underground networks he once controlled, now desperate, hunted, spending his savings not on gambling, but on survival. Until October 2018, nearly 2 years on the run, when a Greek border guard scanned his passport and a screen lit up with 3 words, European arrest. And just like that, it ended. Extradited to the UK in March 2019, standing in Manchester Crown Court that April, hearing Judge Clement Goldstone hand down 8.5 years, the weight of 260 lives he'd commodified, 260 people whose desperation he'd exploited, whose fear he'd monetized, because Bayam knew exactly what they felt. He'd lived it, survived it, and instead of honoring that shared humanity, he weaponized it, turned trauma into transaction, built an empire on the same vulnerability he'd once embodied. And perhaps the cruelest irony is this: the system that saved him, that processed his asylum claim, that gave him refuge when he needed it most, became the very system he undermined, not because he disagreed with it, not because he wanted to reform it, but because feeding an addiction mattered more than protecting the integrity of the refuge that had protected him. And maybe that's what makes this story so haunting. Bayam wasn't some distant criminal mastermind. He was one of them. He knew the fear, the darkness of that lorry crossing Europe, the relief of reaching safety. And still, somehow, gratitude wasn't enough. Survival wasn't enough. A legitimate second chance wasn't enough. Because addiction has a way of consuming everything, even empathy, even memory, even the sacred weight of having been saved. In the end, one repeated email address, one algorithmic flag, one officer in Paris noticing a pattern brought down an operation that felt untouchable, proving what criminals always forget and investigators always remember. Perfection is impossible. Efficiency breeds patterns, and patterns are exactly what machines are built to find. So Bayam sits in prison now, 8.5 years to reflect on the journey from refugee to smuggler, from grateful survivor to convicted criminal, from the back of a lorry in 2012 to a cell in 2019. And somewhere in that arc lies a question worth asking. What transforms gratitude into greed, relief into exploitation, survival into predation? Because the real prison wasn't the cell they put him in. It was the one he built himself the moment he decided other people's desperation was worth 11,000 pounds a head. Bayam's story isn't just about fake documents or asylum fraud or even gambling addiction. It's about what happens when we forget where we came from, when we stop seeing others as human and start seeing them as opportunity, when the very suffering that shaped us becomes the suffering we're willing to profit from. And if there's a lesson here, it's this: you're never as invisible as you think. Systems always catch up, and the very shortcuts that made you efficient become the breadcrumbs that lead investigators straight to your door.